Welcome back to the Changemaker Podcast. I'm your host, Deke Copenhaver. Today, my guest is my good friend, Jason Brown, grandson of James Brown, and he's an entrepreneur in entertainment, legal, and tech industries. As a graduate of the Savannah College of Art and Design, keeping the arts with the business is his preferred way to work. From working on Get On Up, which we're going to really get into that, to Warner Brothers Records, Paramount, and Universal, Mr. Brown has been around the Hollywood block for 10 years. Now recently a new father, and congratulations, brother, has moved back to Atlanta to rebuild the same industries on the East Coast. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for my friend, Jason Brown.
Welcome to the Changemaker Podcast, hosted by Deke Copenhaver. Deke is the author of The Changemaker, a Forbes publishing book that has reached #1 on Amazon on multiple occasions and in multiple categories like management skills and total quality management. During this podcast, Deke interviews exceptional change-making leaders. Deke currently operates Copenhaver Consulting, where he helps local governments and other public organizations maximize their potential. He's also a sought-after public speaker. We hope that the Changemaker has an impact on you today and that you find takeaways that make you a better leader in your life. Now, here's Deke.
Thank you, Deke. Thank you, Mr. Copenhaver.
You don't need to call me Mr.
Right,
Copenhaver. Well, let's open it up with this. That man, you are a first-time father, correct?
Yes, sir. Recently, July 5th.
That is so cool. And Khair,
my son.
where does the name come from?
It's an Arabic name my girlfriend picked, and I liked it once I heard it, and it just worked for me.
So how did you went to SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design? It's been, and I'll just, for our listeners, it's been so cool to know you for so long and to see you grow and become this like just force of nature with everything you do. And I'm going to suggest that our listeners follow you on Instagram because, man, I'm living vicariously through you. But obviously your grandfather was the legendary Godfather of Soul. Is that really his influence? Is that what got you into the entertainment industry?
I'd say so. More so my mother as well, because my mother was on the radio doing something very similar to what we're doing now. Yeah. But for KISS and Power, Magic, a lot of the local stations, maybe even Foxy, I don't know. And she was on News 12 for some time. So outside of seeing my grandfather do it, I got to see my mother do it firsthand more than my granddad, because he was a 7 times generation legend by then. Yeah. So and I think that was passed down from him to her to me more so. But of course, seeing him do it on another scale that I couldn't understand until the day he died more so, and still learning to this day, it's that was a whole nother level that I think I would get glimpses of, that when I tap into certain things and my successes, I'm getting a glimpse of, but not fully there yet. But hopefully.
Well, you and I have had these discussions, and I share with people when I talk about you, I'm like, you are your grandfather's grandson because your work ethic, and we talked about how he sort of instilled that work ethic in you. And I know your mom, who was my first guest on this podcast, is a very hard worker as well. But talk a little bit about the example that he set for you through his work ethic.
I think his work ethic is purely his life, you know, from being dark-skinned, young black man in 1933 during the Great Depression in South Carolina, Barnwell or Snelling as well. It's you have to have a work ethic. Yeah. You have to be tough-skinned, and I think that focus is the biggest attribute to that. I feel like once somebody makes a decision, the younger you make a decision and you stick with it, the further you go with that decision in life. And I think that he decided music early on and decided to take it very serious and to focus on it, and saw it as a way of getting out of poverty, which he was in. So, with my granddad living in a brothel and both of his parents technically abandoning him, you would have, that tough skin, and you grow up fast, and you'd see so many things in life that make you want to get out of that situation and to never go back.
Well, let me ask you this. So having the last name Brown, I mean, being James Brown's grandson, has that opened doors for you, or has that placed, major expectations on, your ability to perform, or what is that like to be in the entertainment industry and be James Brown's
It's
grandson?
both. It's about opportunities, for sure, and then it's about where you are as a person in your craft or where you are mentally. So I think that if I decide, or if anybody decides to take on a legacy and they are proud of it, then you're making that decision to say, hey, yeah, I'm going to go within this route. Understand that you may not be able to fill these big of shoes, but when they use your grandfather's name, you're taking it seriously. You are, you're giving it a legacy-esque understanding.
Reverence.
Well, yeah, and I would say that opportunities, yes, a lot of opportunities, but I've chosen them. I've got other cousins that have not chosen the lifestyle as much as I have.
Yeah.
Or they, I won't say not as proud, but they don't choose entertainment. Yeah. The Brown name goes within entertainment, so if it's not as strong in medical, somebody may be a James Brown fan, but it doesn't take them to the next level in medical. Yeah. But in music, it takes somebody else to the next level too. If they work with me or if they work with the James Brown name, it's like their attachment to it as well. Yeah. So, of course, it's given me a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, then it's about who you are and where you are in life. Yep. And if you're not skilled, then you've kind of messed up a relationship. Yeah. Where you could have excelled it. And I've been there. I've been in DJ gigs where I thought that I was, capable of packing a crowd or keeping it going. And they're like, oh, well, you're just not there yet. We get that you have the name, but you as a person yourself have to grow and to see who you are as an artist, or see who you are as a person in general, where you are mentally.
I want to get your take on this because your mom and I have had these discussions. It's almost like your grandfather was a hero in the old saying of hero in his own hometown, or whatever, a prophet in his own hometown. But he didn't always get the credit locally that he deserved. And I remember when he passed, I said I did an interview on the BBC, and I said, now maybe the local community will get to see what he meant to the world. And I think about, his homegoing service was live on CNN for like 4 hours. So I'm like, and I would tell people here locally, I'm like, man, CNN does not go live for 4 hours from everybody's homegoing service. But what's your take on that?
Well, I didn't realize how big he was until one of his funerals. Yeah. I didn't realize how massive he was until we were at the Apollo. Yeah. And when I saw the people lining up, celebrities coming through, and them just breaking down crying. And then when it came down to Augusta, when Michael showed up, that was a huge thing too.
Michael Jackson.
When Michael Jackson showed up to James Brown's funeral in Augusta, Georgia, that was huge. I don't think Michael Jackson had ever been to Augusta, Georgia.
I don't think so.
But if he had, it might have been as a Jackson 5 or something like that to perform, maybe the Chitlin Circle or something like that. But things like that were eye-opening things to me because I grew up under a privatized limelight. It's subjective to what my family wants me to see as children. And when you grow up, it's just no hiding it. Yeah. So you either accept it or you're all about it, or it's more of, no, I'm not gonna let that be more so where I go. I'm gonna go a different direction because I may be built differently, or it just doesn't interest me, or it's just not for me.
I'll tell you who, and it was cool seeing Michael Jackson at your grandfather's homegoing service, but I'm a huge Public Enemy fan, and Chuck D was there too. I'm like, man, but that just kind of shows you the influence that he had on all genres of music.
Right. And I think that, Augusta understands But Augusta is still Augusta, Georgia, and it's still where it's at. If Augusta had more entertainment going on, I think they would understand. I think if Augusta had perhaps a bigger population, or more international presence, they would understand the name of James Brown and how much. When you think of Augusta, the only two names you think of is James Brown and the Masters. You know, and that's and to me, based off of what I know, there's more to that. There's CSRA. There's our basketball tournament, our high school basketball tournament that we have. There's some big things that happen in Augusta that we should give more notoriety to. That my granddad knew. Granddaddy, he was proud to be from here for the small reasons and the big reasons.
You know, it's just funny because you mentioned that we also have the largest half Ironman in North America every year. I used to do that a good bit, but I met your grandfather at the Tour de Georgia, which was a bicycle race that was coming through Augusta. And it was just, he said he knew my people and that I was so new and I was so now that Augusta was never going to hold me. So I don't know if he's ever right about that or not, but I was like, this is the coolest man I've ever met.
Well, did it hold you or did you hold it?
I think maybe a little bit of both. I don't think it's held me. I think particularly with some of the stuff I'm working on. I tried. It's hard to handle.
Well, hey, that's the thing. If Augusta had more new things, we would be more educated. We would be more well versed in what the world has to offer. There's a lot more than just going to Myrtle Beach over the weekend, in Florida during summertime and spring break and stuff like that. There's a lot more to the world, and if all you got to do is take a flight. A lot of people in Augusta are scared to fly. You know, that's one thing, and I'm from here. I get it. You know, I've you know, just going to church and meeting people who've never left the country, to me is kind of just it's given my circumstances. I don't think people have an excuse because my grandfather came from poverty and did what he did. So I look at that as, if James Brown can do it, you can do it. You know, regardless of him being my grandfather or not, you see that. You know his story, especially being from Augusta. A lot of people should step out and see what the world really has to offer them.
You know, and I want to peel back the onion on that a little bit, because you just touched on something that, so you traveled the world, and we'll get into a little bit more of that. But one of the things that I've said about with particularly the youth here in Augusta, I wish all, particularly the lower income youth, I wish they could all travel somewhat, because when I was in office and I didn't broadcast it, but if somebody found out you're the mayor of Augusta, even now the former mayor, they treat you like a celebrity because they know the name. So there's a value to being from someplace that's recognized as being the home of James Brown and the Masters. But if kids never get outside the area, they don't, I mean, how do you instill that sense of pride? I think it's easier if they get it. And they get it when people, if they say they're from Augusta, people treat them as being special, and so it builds that pride.
Well, life is about attaching yourself to something bigger, purely. You know, and it took me some time to realize that. But a lot of times it takes people the time to realize that because they have to get out of their own ego. You know, and I think people from Augusta we're very competitive people, especially because of sports. It runs our life here more so. Basketball, football, Friday nights. It's that's a way of life here, is the athletics. It's a way out too. Music, obviously, Augusta has a music scene. You cannot deny that. But there's more ways. There's the tech industry that's coming through, and I think using in golf, Augusta has a big golf connection, but we don't have any famous golfers or a famous organization that's representing golf alone, or golfers, bringing young golfers in. That's something that easily someone could just, hey, you know what, guys, Augusta's known for golf. We should just we could have a golf training academy, Augusta Golf Training Academy, and it would blow up just because the Masters is here. You know, and hence why my mother has the James Brown Academy of Music. Once we start attaching ourselves to the positive things that are bigger than us, we become bigger along with it, or we become in the same conversation.
Yeah.
Which puts you right along in the same equation to do something better for your situation or everybody else's.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about your world travels, and I've shared with you that I live vicariously through your Instagram account.
Okay.
Which is Grand Soul Son.
Yes.
At Grand Soul Son.
Yes.
So for our listeners and our viewers, check him out.
Grand Soul Son. Grand Soul Son.
So you were your most recent journey was to Colombia, South America.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I do an international tour for the most part once a year, and where I book out the villas and the venues, and I'll book local DJs and DJs from America or wherever my network is, and say, hey, if you're not playing internationally and you want to have a vacation and come play, I've booked out these venues, and we can just come DJ to their crowd, have a good time, make it a vacation. And it's an allusion to the DJs that don't get booked internationally on their own, but still want to have that resume under their belt, So that Colombia this year, and last year was Dominican Republic.
Yeah, well, it's like I told your mom when COVID hit, I'm like, COVID is not slowing Jason down at all.
No, well, the Dominican Republic was very under the table.
Yeah,
the whole thing. The country's very third world, and all I had to do was pay off the police. I paid off the military to throw a party on the beach, and the reason is because they have sea turtles that come onto the beach, and you're not allowed to mess with them in the ecosystem. But we had a party a little bit further down on the beach, but you still had to pay off the police, still had to pay off the military, the marina, that they
the
call
cost of doing business.
Cost of doing business. But did all that just so that Colombia could be easier, and then hopefully I do Brazil, and then Brazil will be a lot easier.
Yeah. Well, I want to talk to you about this. Is that I think entrepreneurs are leaders. Mm-hmm. And you are a tremendous entrepreneur because they're not afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
And, some of the most successful people in the world, if you're not going to get ahead and be successful if you don't take risks. I've taken lots of risks, and I've had the limb sawed out from under me on multiple times, but I continue to take risks. Mm-hmm. But what's your take on that? Because obviously, you've got to be bold to be a leader, and you've got to be very bold to be an entrepreneur.
Risks come with decision making in the moment, I think. And I think you won't get far if you don't take a risk. But with the risk comes the work.
Yep.
A lot of times you can't just put your money down and expect for it to come back, like in crypto.
Yeah.
Sometimes, or like in a casino. A lot of times once you put your money down, you have to do a lot of repair or maintenance to make sure that it stays coming in, and that this service that you bought into, or this piece of equipment, or this robot, or this contract that you have to maintain it. So I think once you get over taking a risk, and you've developed something where people say passive income, or that's automatic money, you've built something that's just running on its own, then it's about the maintenance of it. But it's always a risk every single time you decide that, hey, I'm going to put my money into this and hope that it comes back. Everything goes perfectly. Everyone's safe. Nobody gets hurt. And the job is done at a great capacity.
Well, we were discussing before coming on air about this podcast. I mean, this is a risk for me. It's a startup effectively, but I think we've developed enough content and now we can go out for sponsors and everything. But, you need to take, in my opinion, you can never get too settled. I'm 54 years old, and it's like I'm still taking risks. But it's risk reward. If you don't take the risk, you don't get the reward.
What's the real reward? Is it the money, or is it the fact that you learn something?
I think it's that you learn something. And I'll tell you this, it's really interesting. I've just decided that every platform I have, whether it's my podcast, my book, executive coaching, whatever I do, working with this new national nonprofit, it's about bringing people together on common ground. And so I think that's the real reward. And hopefully, you got to make a living, but I feel like that's the calling that God has placed on my life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And, and to touch on a risk that I take, whenever I do one of my mini festivals, I do them monthly out in the desert. A friend of mine has 40 acres of desert land, and we just go out there and throw a camping party. I take a risk every single time. I put the money down. I rent the porta potties. I do this. I get the security. I rent the land. I get the sound and the staging. Because sometimes there's a lot of people. Sometimes there's not.
Yeah.
The more people, the more money, obviously, in almost anything you do. But, you also risk people getting hurt out there, or people drinking a little too much. You know what I'm saying? So things like that, you have to accept. And during the pandemic, this was a time when I started this part of my entrepreneurialism, was just throwing events massively. You weren't even supposed to throw events. You were supposed to be not in crowds of 3, 4, 5 people. But I took a risk to say, hey, if I go to jail, I go to jail too. If I made the ultimate mistake, I did that. However, it didn't turn out to be that way, because a lot of times when you take your risk, you have to do your research, and that I did do. In the county of which I was throwing these events in, you can have people on private land up to 500 without a judge having to say whether what happens to you or not.
Yep.
So luckily, after doing my research, I still took a risk financially. And, nowadays police can just come and do whatever they want sometimes and spring up things.
Yeah.
I've been lucky and blessed that nothing bad has happened. I've been under the radar and nobody's gotten hurt, but I'm still, according to the law, abiding by it and not doing anything too risky, I should say.
Well, so you recently relocated from LA to Atlanta.
Yes.
So how's that transition been for you? And I'm sure they're two totally different animals.
It's been a bit of a valley, I would say. I took a bit of a setback in my legal industry because I had 3 employees at the time before the pandemic, and what I do is shoot depositions on videotape. Just get hired by a lawyer or a law firm to record their video depositions, either in person, kind of like how we're doing now with the podcast, or on Zoom remotely. And when the pandemic hit, I took the event seriously, took a step back. So when I moved back to Atlanta, I had to start working for somebody again. I couldn't just up and do the business and say, hey, I've got all this experience, book my team. I didn't have a team. I have to train somebody else into doing it, buy the equipment all over again after selling it before. And, that has been one of those entrepreneurial valleys that I'm experiencing now. But coming up, I just bought the equipment, and I'm training more people now. So I hope that within a few months, I'm able to be where I was in LA back here in Atlanta.
Yeah, but you just keep working and keep pushing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about, I know you were in Get On Up.
Yes.
The biopic on your granddad. And I was able to attend the premiere. I know you got to know Chadwick Boseman, the late, great Chadwick Boseman. I met him that night of the premiere, and he was just so humble and such an amazing guy. But I after he passed, I wrote a piece for Forbes about he was a hero for our times because it was not, the cultural phenomenon that is Black Panther. That wasn't just young black kids or young, the love of that movie and his character in it crossed all boundaries. And so I'd love to talk to you about your personal experience with him. My personal opinion is the world needs more Chadwick Bosemans.
I think that Chadwick Boseman was definitely a hard worker. He was a great guy. Every time we connected, it was always great vibes. We never had an issue, never had anything slight. We've had some very deep moments. Sometimes we would freestyle, just kick it and just chill back, when we were on set. He was a southern boy just like me.
Yeah.
He was from Anderson. I'm from Aiken, Augusta. You know, it's not too far from home when you get connected. The only thing we didn't do is probably go out and shoot some hoops. You know, everything else we did, we're at the bar kicking it. He was a guy's guy. You know, but also the ladies liked him too. You know, I think that it's unfortunate that he had so much of a climax and the way that things ended for him, and unfortunately, you know, say what you want about his estate too. It's a better take that we all have to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
But working with Chad was a huge surreal moment. Working with Get On Up, him playing my granddad was, you know, I was on set and in the office. I learned so much. And the best thing about Chad was he kept it real with me, you know, in every form of perspective he was thinking. So I learned a lot from him, which is helping me in this cartoon that I'm developing now. And recently just got attached with Snoop Dogg. So he's going to be in the cartoon, and this is something that's going to be big, and hopefully it puts Augusta on the map again, and we have another premiere, and you get to meet more celebrities.
I want Snoop on my podcast.
Yes, I'm sure we all do.
That would be awesome. But congratulations on all your success, but I think you have something that Chad. You said Chad was a Southern guy like you. You've got a humility and a gentleness of spirit about you that I think is very much like in my brief conversation with them. I'm like, this guy's just awesome, but you are as well.
I appreciate that, Deke. You are too, and thank you for having me. I think that these parts about Augusta are, you know, you always say you should run or you should come on back. We'll see you when you come on down. It's touching home. You know, I would just like to see Augusta have more going on for the youth. Because I think that once there's more going on, there's less violence.
Yep.
There's less gang-related things because that's just being bored.
Yeah.
You know, let's just be honest. You're either going to school or you're going to work around here. And if you're not doing either, you're just hanging out.
And you know the old saying, idleness is the devil's workshop?
Yes, yes, absolutely.
That's it. Well, as we draw to a close, I always like to ask my guests, what in any given day, and I think I'm going to know the answer to this question ahead of time, puts a smile on your face and joy in your heart?
You mean day of the week?
Well, no, just anything on any given day. What puts a smile on your face and brings joy to your heart?
Okay, when you know, after let's say a successful event, and everyone's congratulating you on the fact that things go smoothly, when your work is, you know, as an artist, when people realize your work.
Yep.
That's what it really is, you know, when say, hey, you did that, you made it good, it's still going. Can't believe it's lasted this long. Everyone's still enjoying it. Nobody's been hurt. Everyone, you know, it's still a safe situation, and it can keep going without you. That's the best part. Is like
sustainability.
It's built itself, and now it's on automatic. I can step away from it, raise my son. I think about the things that I built that aren't James Brown related.
Yeah.
Like my app, you know, the fact that you can take a picture of trash and donate to it, and then someone can come clean it up. In my tech world, those are things that I feel like make me smile the most, because yes, I have the James Brown thing, but I don't want to be fully remembered as that.
Yeah.
You know, I want people to be like, oh no, this guy, he had that gene, you know what I'm saying? But he became to be Jason Brown too.
Yep.
And, you know, and that, I think that's more important than being known as the grandson of James Brown, than just to say, oh no, he was a grandson, but he had his own thing too. And he had stuff that wasn't James Brown related, not music related at all, that popped off, that are like, wow, you know, that's something big too.
Leaving a legacy of your own. But you know, we stand the tallest when we stand on the shoulders of giants and legends, and you're definitely doing that, but you're creating your own legacy, which is a beautiful thing to see.
I'm trying to hopefully with you know, with people like yourself, we can team up together and attach each other's names and keep.
I am all
keep doing
over that. But brother, thank you for being an awesome guest. Oh.
Handshake, fist dab, however you want to do it.
Whatever we want to do. Dropping the mic, and we are out.